We're back in Photoshop, and today we're going to be talking about layers and transforming them. Okay, so we have Photoshop open. I'm going to click on Create New, and we're going to start a document once again from scratch. I believe the last time we were talking about layers, we started with an illustration layer, and we did a 2000 pixel grid. So let's switch it up a bit. This time let's go to Photo, and let's make a landscape-sized image. 5 inches by 7 inches, or in this case, it's going to be 7 by 5, longer in the width at 300 ppi or pixels per inch. And we will hit create. There is our blank document. If your ruler is up, Command or Control R or View Ruler, you can see that it is exactly 7 by 5. But that's really not here nor there for this project. So I'm going to add in a couple of different assets to this document, and then we'll begin manipulating them and transforming them in different ways. Okay, so I already have a couple of things downloaded, and we're just going to add them to our document. So let's say that I wanted this triangle. All I have to do is click it and drag it, and it is now in our document. And because I clicked and dragged it, it is what we call a smart object, and it gives it this smart object icon. We will talk more about smart objects later on, but for now, all you need to know is they have slightly limited functionality in terms of how you can change them. Less filters are available. I wouldn't be able to brush on this layer. However, it is a non-destructive way to work Photoshop, meaning that any changes that I make to this layer when it is a smart object, they won't actually harm the pixels, and I can always go back to how the layer was initially. Let's get in some more assets here. I'm going to hit File. We will click on Place Embedded, and I will go back to that same folder, and now let's add in this little one, and we'll hit Place. Now and we have to hit the check mark in order to confirm that we want to place that document there. Now we're going to go to Google Images, and let's search something else. Now let's search Galaxy. And I'm going to hit Tools. We'll change our size to large. And if we want to keep things legal, we will also change our usage rights to labeled for reuse with modification. And I'm just looking through different things in here. I kind of like this image. We could open the image in a new tab. That's a smaller version of it. We can open the link in a new tab. And here we've got it. There we go. So we're going to copy this. I zoomed in on it to make sure we're copying it at its full resolution. And I'm going to click on Copy Image after right-clicking it, or Alt-Option clicking it if you're on a Mac. We're going to go back to Photoshop. So we're just bringing in a bunch of different assets into this same Photoshop document. Now I'm going to hit Edit and Paste. Let's see. So we've got now 4 total layers. We've got that Galaxy Sky image that we just copy-pasted. Underneath it, we have our, I guess, stairs. That's what this is. Which is a smart object. We can poke out its eye to turn off its visibility. Beneath that, we have our triangle layer. We'll turn off its visibility, and then at the very bottom, we have our locked background. We already know that I can change the name of these layers by double-clicking on the text and typing in whatever I would like. I can also right-click it and click on a color if I would like to assign each layer a color. This one, we'll call this Stairs. This one, we'll double-click the text and call this Galaxy. Make the Galaxy layer, say green. We'll make the triangle layer red. And our background layer we will just maintain as white. Let's also do this. I'm going to go to my horizontal type tool. Sometimes that takes a moment to pull up, and I'm going to click. Every time you add type to your image, it makes it as a new layer. You'll notice that when I clicked, it added a new layer. Now you would think that by clicking and adding a new layer, anytime a new layer is added, you would assume it would be added to the very top. But it doesn't. It adds a new layer above the layer that you had selected. So if you think back to a moment ago, I originally had my triangle layer selected. So when I clicked and typed, or started typing, let's just type space. I can't see it. I know it's there because I can tell that there's letters here, but I can't see my type, and that's because it is currently being covered up by both the galaxy layer and the stairs layer. So I'm going to hit the check mark to confirm that I want to type the word space. It automatically changes the name of that layer to space. And if I click and drag this up, still can't see it because it's still beneath the galaxy layer. So if I click and drag it up again or hold Control or Command and hit the close bracket key, it will move it up again. Now it's at the top and it actually is there, but it's hard to see because it is black. Let's double click the font, go up here to our options bar, change color from black to, let's say, white. Now we can see that actual layer. Okay, so what we're focusing in on this video, we've just added a bunch of different layers. Now let's kind of transform them in different ways. If I wanted this space layer to be bigger, all I have to do is first to select the layer, and then I'm going to come up here to my Edit menu, and what we're going to do is we are going to transform it. Now there's a bunch of options under the Transform menu under Edit, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually click on Free Transform. And any of these little menu options that you have over here, sometimes they also give you hotkeys over here, which are just keyboard combinations that you could press to quickly pull up that function in Photoshop. So this one, if I wanted to free transform, I could hit Command on a Mac or Control on a Windows, hold that button down, and then hit T. I'll do that right now, and it will automatically pull up the free transform. Now, free transform in Photoshop has gone through a little bit of an overhaul lately, and it's made a lot of people angry. I guess myself included, if I'm going to get angry about something as silly as this. If you've used Photoshop before, this will be different to you. When resizing something, we automatically know that it's best to grab any of the corners. So I hit Command or Control T, and I'm grabbing the corners here of this bounding box, and that will automatically resize it. Now, it used to be in Photoshop that if you wanted to resize something and keep it proportional, you would hold down Shift, and that would keep it from going too crazy like this or like this. Holding down Shift would keep your original asset that you're resizing proportional, aka the ratio from the width to the height would remain the same. And that's how it's been ever since I've used Photoshop for the past like 20 years. But in Photoshop CC 2019, they decided to change that, and now no longer works that way. In fact, it works the opposite. If you hit Command or Control T and you start to transform something, it will automatically keep it proportional unless you hold Shift. So right now, I'm not holding Shift, and it's maintaining its proportionality. But if I hold Shift and start to resize something, you can see that it gets a little wonky on me. But if I let go, it goes back to how it originally was. So depending on the version of Photoshop that you are running on your computer or the computer that you're using, you might run into different ways. So keep that in mind. If it's CC 2019, don't hold Shift, and it will keep it proportional. If you're running CC, an older version of Photoshop, then if you want to resize something to keep it proportional, you're going to need to hold down Shift. So we just transformed that layer. I'm going to select the galaxy layer, zoom out with Control minus. We can see that when I pasted it, that was a pretty big document. I'm going to resize that too. I hit Command or Control T. That's the same thing as going to Edit, Free Transform, and I can resize that down as well. I'm just resizing it so we can cover up space there, the word space. So we're going to create what is called a clipping mask. And the way a clipping mask works is you force an image or a layer, in this case, to show up inside the boundaries of another layer. So we're going to use just the space texture and our letters here. So I'm going to turn off the stair layer, and I'm also going to turn off the triangle layer. And here's how this works. We're going to take our space layer, drag it beneath the galaxy layer, and then we right-click or Alt-Option-click on the layer with our image in it, which in this case it's our galaxy layer, and then we just click on the option that says Create Clipping Mask. And when you do that, what it does is it adds this little arrow that points down. So we're only seeing this layer where the space letters are. So if I go down to the space layer, click my move tool and move that around, you can see that it actually moves around on this base layer. And if I hit Command or Control T, resized it, that works too. So we're just transforming layers in different ways. Let's turn our triangle layer back on. We will move it. Go to your move tool. Anytime you want to move something, you can just drag it around. I'm going to hit Command or Control T. Same thing as Edit Free Transform, and we can resize that too. Not sure why we're adding a triangle to this image, but that's what we did. And we'll just put it right down here at the bottom. Let's do something else. Let's add in another document to this image. Let's hit Place Embedded. Let's look at the various images that we've got. Let's open up the butterfly. Okay. Check mark to place it, or you could hit the Enter key. Let's move it up to the top with Command or Control, and then your bracket keys. And this one is a smart object as well, but if I right-click it or Alt-Option-click and click on Rasterize Layer, it no longer will be a smart object. Okay, so we already know that I can hit Edit, Free Transform, in order to resize this to make it bigger or smaller. Because I'm using the newer version of Photoshop, it will automatically keep it proportional, but if I didn't want it to be proportional, I could hold Shift and move it around like that. But I'm going to keep it proportional. Another way you can transform it is you could hit Rotate. And Rotate pretty much just works the same way as Command or Control T. We know if we grab the corners that you can resize it, but if you go just past the corner without clicking on it, your cursor changes to this little arrow that's curved. And if you click and drag, you can rotate your image any way that you would like to. So we could rotate it this way and then still resize it. Another way that you could transform something would be to skew it, which is kind of like this. It's transforming on a different scale, and this comes in very handy if you're an architectural photographer or something like that, or you want to give something more of like a depth look. You can skew it to give it a different angle. So you're just grabbing these little boxes on the corners, these anchor points, and transforming them individually from the rest of the image. And that is skew, grabbing it different ways. Then we have distort, which is always fun. You can distort it in different ways. One of my favorites is warp, which comes in very handy. It kind of basically turns your whole image into putty, and you can grab something and move it inwards. And it really only primarily affects the part of the image that you clicked on. You can see that we got a little bit of curvature in this side, really nothing on the far left side, but the primary effect happened over here where I clicked it. You can even grab any of these little bars here, move them around to transform it. So this one is warp. So we've talked about transforming layers in different ways: free transform, skewing, warping, rotating. You can do all sorts of different transformations in Photoshop. We know there's a hotkey that's Command or Control T, which will allow you to rotate it as well. And that is it for now. So we talked about adding layers to Photoshop, some of the different types of layers that there are, how to change their name, add colors to them. Oh, and one more thing, you can even select them and put them in what's called a group, which is represented by the folder icon down here at the bottom. That way you can organize things a little bit better. If you have a bunch of layers on your document, we know how to change the name of things if we want to too. We'll call this butterfly plus other things. And if I click on this little caret beside it, we can open up that group and see what all was in there. So that is it for now.